I was in this room when I was told that the scan had shown that I had tumours up and down my body, all over here. It was horrendous. It was a physical reaction. It literally, you hear about people talking about you feel like you've been hit. I literally did that. I remember feeling it. I remember feeling it physically. Hi, I'm Nicola Mendelsohn, and I'm the Vice President for Facebook in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. My first ever job was probably as a waitress. My parents have a catering business, and so from a very young age I used to work for them at the weekends.
So how did you go from working as a waitress to getting into tech?
Well, there was a very long journey from being a waitress to working in tech, which basically took me through the world of advertising, an industry where I worked for over 20 years, and then ultimately into Facebook, where I joined about 7 years ago. When I got the job at Facebook, in many ways it was very different, but there was also a lot of similarities. Obviously the difference was it's a tech company, it's at a big American, well, it wasn't a big American company then, it was much smaller than it is today. But at the heart of it, there were so many of the things that I'd learned in the world of advertising that still rang true. The relationships that you have with people, the whole advertising business is also the business of Facebook as well. That's how it makes its money. So many of the relationships and the connections that I'd built over the previous 20 years were certainly important as I took on the role.
So what does an average day at Facebook look like?
A typical day might be that I would meet with small business owners that use our platforms. I might meet with community admins, the people that are running the groups on our platforms, and they're so wide and varied. I would meet with advertisers, I would meet with politicians, I would meet with our teams. So there really is no such thing as a typical day, and that's probably why I love my job so much.
What else do you love about your job?
I feel very blessed to have the job that I do, because at the heart of what I do is about people. It's about bringing people together, whether it's in the online world or increasingly people use our platforms to come together in the real world as well, and to see the things that we were able to help people to do and throughout the pandemic, whether it's the local community groups. I'm in a few of them in this area, where total strangers came together to help one another at a time when they needed it the very most. And to think that happened as a result of, in some small part, through the work that I do every day, well, that's definitely a good reason to get out of bed.
As a really prominent female leader in quite a male-dominated industry, do you see yourself as a role model?
I don't think it's about the titles that you have, but I think it's about what you can do in the position that you're in to be able to help the next generation of women coming through. And so through my whole career, it's been really important to me that I've been able to help other women, whether it's through advice, whether it's through mentoring, whether it's through programs, and yes, whether it's through people seeing me and saying, well, if she can do it, a girl from Manchester, then maybe I can do something like that too. I think over soon to be 30 years working, I definitely have seen a change in the attitudes of people leading organisations, and a greater consciousness and even, dare say, momentum around wanting to address the issues that stop women reaching the top. That said, we're nowhere near seeing the representation that we want of women in senior leadership in any industry organisation. We still, when a woman becomes a CEO anywhere in the world, it's still like a rare celestial event.
So there's been an increasing number of documentaries, such as The Social Dilemma, that have accused Facebook of being a villain. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's very important that we do take the time to have considered conversations about social media, the impacts that it has, both good and bad. I think there's a misconception around the fact that Facebook wants bad things on its platforms, or Facebook makes money from bad things on its platform. It doesn't. We don't want that content on our platform, and you can see that we don't want that by looking actually at how much money we've invested in this area. The majority of people that are coming onto our platforms are doing so because they're having a good experience. They're coming on because they're connecting with their friends, their family, brands, entertainment, football teams, the things that they care about. And that's not to say that there isn't some bad things on our platform. There are. And when we find them and when we see them, we get it off and we take it down. I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, which is an incurable cancer, in 2016. Getting a diagnosis like that was, it was a shock. I wasn't ill. Completely threw me. I was living a very busy, active, full life, flying all over the world, managing, the family, 4 children, and it absolutely threw me. But when you do have a moment, I think everyone has a moment where you know that the world that you'd been living up till that point was going to be very different to the world that was going to come thereafter. And it was actually in this room. That I got the news that I'd had a scan, and honestly I hadn't thought anything of it. And it was in this room when I was told that the scan had shown that I had tumours up and down my body, all over here. It was horrendous. It was a physical reaction. It literally, you hear about people talking about you feel like you've been hit. I literally did that. I remember feeling it. I remember feeling it physically. The first thing that anybody that gets diagnosed with any type of illness wants to know is, how long have I got? The stats say, well, first off, I should be 65 and a man at getting diagnosed. I'm not. I was 45 when I was diagnosed. It says typically that you, on average, could live up to 20 years. Some people longer, some less. But in the 20 years, you'll probably need between 6 and 8 treatments. And currently, as of 2020, there's no cure for this cancer. When people get a life-changing diagnosis, it's pretty common that they do some drastically different things in their lives. You hear about the people that suddenly have to go and climb a mountain, or maybe get divorced, or change jobs, or move country, or whatever. I didn't do any of those things. And I didn't do any of those things because actually I feel that I've always really spent a lot of time thinking about where I am, what I want to do, what matters to me, and that's my family. Family, first and foremost, is the thing that I've always cared, and it has been my North Star about making sure that my family were happy, safe, in a good way, connected. When it came to work, I've always been a very open person. People that work with me will speak about that I tell it as it is. I don't hide things. I share. But there is still a taboo in the workplace around working and having a disease, and certainly having an incurable cancer. I think that's another area that I think employers need to think about, whether they're creating an environment that people can bring their full selves to work, the good and the bad.
So how are you feeling today?
I am grateful that I am, at this point, well. I've had treatment 2 years ago, which went well, put me into a type of remission where it said that I have no minimal disease. But it means I still have it somewhere, but we don't know when it's going to come back up. But as of today, I'm well. The more time that I spent understanding follicular lymphoma, the kind of the landscape, the doctors involved, the more I realized that this was a question of money and focus. And if there was more money and more focus put into follicular lymphoma, and talking to the scientists, talking to the top researchers, they all believe that this is a cancer that could and should be cured. And so that's the reason that I set up the Follicular Lymphoma Foundation, literally to find a cure and to take all the learnings that I've had from business, from working in tech, to be agile, to be a disruptor, and to find ways to come together alongside with the group Living with Follicular Lymphoma on Facebook that now has over 7,000 members in it. It's the largest gathering of people with follicular lymphoma that has ever existed, and to come together to raise the money, to raise the awareness, and so that hopefully this is a charity that will not be in business very long, because we will have found that cure for the hundreds of thousands of people that are living with this cancer all over the world. We're going to find a cure.
At that point in my life, like there's not an easy way for my nan to have bounded into my room and told me, but she just opened my door on a Wednesday morning and said, "Stephen, your dad's dead, he's hung himself." The first thing I did was, I remember punching the wall. I was so angry. Got up, walked to one of my friends, built a spliff, tried to make sense of it, and I went through a whole spectrum of emotions.